Okay, welcome to day 68 of the 90-day volunteer recruiting challenge. My name is Kenny Conley. I'm the next generation pastor at the Ridge Community Church, and I am about to recruit 50 volunteers for over the course of 90 days. And we're getting really close to the end of this challenge. We're getting really close to our goal of 50 volunteers. And we actually, tomorrow, open up the doors to our brand new kids facility, which is the reason why I'm doing this challenge, the reason why I'm motivated to recruit 50 more volunteers, which will essentially double my volunteer base. But all this week, we've been talking about recruiting large group volunteers. We're opening up 2 theaters tomorrow. We're opening up a preschool theater for preschool large group. We're opening up an elementary theater where we're doing elementary large group. 2 things we've never done here at this church before. So there's a whole bunch of new volunteers. Now, over this week we talked about, I have many volunteers who are serving these new roles who also are small group leaders. Like for instance, in preschool, my daughter, Genevieve, she's in the 7th grade and she serves as a small group leader in our preschool room, but she's also going to be the host every week at the 11:15 service. I've got 2 girls who serve in 2 different preschool rooms that are going to lead worship at the 9:30 service. One of them is going to also lead at the 11:15 service. So I do have people double dip in those things, but we are looking for brand new volunteers. I've talked about hosts and storytellers. I've talked about tech volunteers. I've talked about worship volunteers. I want to talk about a role that you probably don't have. And you maybe haven't even ever considered this role. And this is a role that I haven't yet filled. But I know that over the course of the next 2 to 3 months, I need to find these people. Okay, this is the role of the producer. Okay, the producer. I would say in preschool, you could probably live without a producer. Maybe. It just depends to what level of degree you're pulling off the show. If it's going to be really simple, it's going to be mostly media driven and just a couple people on stage, you may not need a producer. But in elementary, now again, if you're doing elementary and you're relying primarily on the video and such, you may not need a producer. But if you're planning on doing live large groups, which is what we're going to do, where you have hosts and storytellers, sometimes additional actors. You've got 2 or 3 people leading worship. You've got a tech team of sound, lights, video. You might need a producer. And a producer is basically the person who's in charge of the large group. It's like they're the director, the producer. They're calling the shots. They know the script. They know the cues. They know the props. They know the program. And so they're going to call all the shots. It's really helpful to have this position because many of your large group volunteers might be weekly volunteers. So you're going to have a different set of worship leaders at the 9:30 that you will from the 11:15. And there are things that you might learn in the 9:30 service about the script, about the song, about the hand motions. That information needs to get passed to the next service. And you have to figure out how you get that information from one service to the next service. It might be that worship volunteers hanging out until the worship volunteers for the next service come and relaying that information. But if you have someone like a producer, they run both services and they will pass along all the information that the next service needs. I've found that when I didn't have producers, then usually things were a little bit crazier. Sometimes it put your volunteers in difficult situations where there's mistakes or things that should have been caught or weren't caught, and it happens, and that's always unfortunate. But then you also sometimes just need solid leadership to make sure that the program starts on time, it ends on time, everyone gets their cues, and so having somebody in the producer role is super important. Now, again, I said this yesterday, that when you recruit great volunteers, you raise the bar, you end up creating an environment that people want to serve in. And I would say this producer is one of those roles. I've had large group experiences where we didn't have producers and people get frustrated because nobody knew what time this thing started, or nobody knew if we were playing that video or not. Nobody knew like if there were last minute changes. And so people just tend to get frustrated. But when you have a producer, you have somebody who can craft the large group experience, they can care for all the large group volunteers, and they can lead them well. I've typically found that my producers, I try to recruit them to serve once a month, and they serve all 3 services or all 2 services, because they really do need to study the script. They make final edits and updates to the script. They make sure that all the slides where they're supposed to be, the sound effects where they're supposed to be, the videos where they're supposed to be, and they typically stand in the back of the sound booth and they cue the tech volunteers like, okay, play that now. Okay, switch that video now. And they're calling the shots, making sure that everything happens the way that it's supposed to happen. And so it's best that they serve multiple services, so that way they can dedicate their whole day to that, and they can be an expert on that day's large group experience. But then you also, so basically that means you need about 4 that they can rotate in and out. And now here's what I found. I've had, at some churches, I've had a large group director who will sometimes play the role of producer, which is great. Let them be the producer. This is maybe what they do on Sunday morning, but they should also be raising up volunteer producers. Oftentimes, I might have a host who serves every week. Once a month, they play the producer. They're very adept to your large group experience, what it looks like, because they're in it all the time. It's almost like, when a movie star from a movie you love is also directing the film. So they're like living in kind of both roles. It might be a worship leader, or it might be your host or storyteller, and once a month they serve all 3 services and sit in the role of the producer. Now, the week that they're producing, they really shouldn't be on the stage for any reason. They need to be in the tech booth calling the shots. So it is something that you should consider. It's not crazy to think of, like, as you continue to recruit your volunteers and build this out. Again, I'm at a rural church in rural North Georgia, and now I don't have any producers yet, but give me a few more months and I should start to fill the producer positions, and we're gonna be gold. So consider this role. It's gonna take your large group experiences from here